This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
For anybody out in internet land, the recording has begun. There's no camera in the room, and we're not in our typical room. There's no camera in this room that we're meeting in tonight. So while you can't see us, we can see you eventually if you turn on your cameras. But you won't be able to see us, but you will be able to hear us. Before we begin, if we could just introduce ourselves, I guess, with audio and how we are on this committee. I'm Scott Kavanaugh. I'm the mayor's appointee, and I'm the chair of the committee.
Jay Ryan, represents the Conservation Commission.
Kara Hinter, I am representing Parks and Rec Department or Commission.
Mary Church, the Housing Authority.
Tom Peak, I represent City Council.
Dan Rist, City Council appointee.
I'm Ava Gristel. I'm the CPA coordinator for the city.
Awesome. And we did have a new name there, so we want to officially welcome Kira to the committee. We're really excited that you're here. I'm really excited that you're here personally too.
Well,
I think we all are. We're really good. It's a great committee to be on, and it's nice to have new face. So, new face to this committee, not a new face to things in Easthampton. All right. Public speak. Oh, excuse me. Approval of minutes. Is there a motion about approving the minutes of February 27th?
almost.
Second.
Excellent. All in favor? Aye.
I'll
Yes.
abstain.
Yeah. So it's perfect though. We still have 5. Looks like 5 with 1 abstention.
Great.
So that motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Ed, for always doing those.
Yeah. Sorry about
That's
that.
okay. Was it reading something to you? Yeah. Thank you, Ed, for doing the minutes as always and doing such a thorough job. Public speak, if there's anybody here to speak, and this is for the people online as well, about something that is not listed on the agenda. So not about Valley CDC or about Lathrop invasive removal. But if anybody's here to speak about anything else, this is the time to do that. Seeing no virtual hands. City officials, do you have some updates for us, I believe, in looking at the documents that were on there?
I do. Yep.
Excellent.
Okay. So the first one I'll project is this memo that I wrote to the city's auditor. I did have an opportunity to check in with the planning director around the Manhan Rail Trail funds from fiscal year 2010. And
Just a little while.
just a few years ago, and she did confirm that the planning department is ready for those funds to return to the CPA committee. So this is the latest $3,762.50 is returned to the fund balance reserved for open space.
Excellent. Thank you so much for moving forward. That it's not a lot of money, but it's something that's off the list, which has been on there for a long time.
Getting interest on it.
We don't have to look at fiscal FY 2010 on our open projects anymore.
Especially for not a huge amount of money. So thank you. That's great.
For sure. The other project that I have an update on is the Mount Tom Trailhead. And this is a memo from John Mason requesting those funds to stay in place. So this was the note he made. He told me, and as he states here, that they're concerned about ongoing maintenance of the trailhead and would like to use those funds for that.
How much we talking?
There's like 27,000 left in that account.
That was for construction.
That was for construction. Yep.
It wasn't for maintenance.
Correct.
So there's that.
Right.
We can approve it. If we want to.
So this prompted a conversation that I was thinking that I think if the CPA committee wants to keep funds in an account that were designated for usage like this past their project funding agreement expiration, they should do so through like a formal extension, like
Yeah.
extending the project funding agreement for a period of time to then check back in on, rather than, we're just going to have an expired account.
Yeah, like I don't mind the idea of these funds that were appropriated being used. Like, I don't mind the idea of the city using funds to maintain these trails, but that's not what we appropriated the funds for. So if that's something that the Parks Department is interested in, I really think that it would be best for John to come here and pitch that idea, and we might want to do that as a form of a separate request, claw this back and send something else out for what's a right size proposal for that project. Like, that's a different project, and that was a pretty specific thing that didn't end up coming to fruition.
No, it did.
No,
No. It's the one off East Street.
The one off East Street, yeah. Then never mind.
I mean,
But it's done. It did come to fruition.
It did come.
and
Yes,
it's
my bad. But
yeah.
the point stands though. That,
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe if we go back, there's something in there saying that there's some funds that should be put in there for maintenance, but I don't believe.
Sounds like a high maintenance number.
Kind
A
of
lot of
does.
Well,
Yeah, go.
I know for a fact that we have allowed design funds to be switched around in city state. I remember doing it. I don't have a problem. He should come back and put in a new request to change the fund's usage. I just don't think we need to go through the entire procedure of a full new application, bring it to city council and all that. It was already appropriated for the park. It has to be used, and the money has to be used for the park. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, Tom, what do you think? I just don't think we should go all the way through the whole process. That'll take months.
If he wants to come and say, here's the maintenance needs that we have, and here's why we think that this is an appropriate amount of funds, and would you mind switching it over? We can have that conversation, but I need to understand. We're talking, we said 27,000.
some of it's encumbered, which I'm not sure what those if there's contracts that we're still actively paying out on.
Okay, so I just need to understand the situation better. I'm not opposed to spending money on the maintenance of the trailhead. That's not what it was for. So I just want, and if they say, hey, we want to switch this over, like with City Space, I'm open to that, but it should be a conversation.
And City Space did come back to it.
But
I was curious, like, this came up with you guys, or you have any other insight on this?
I don't have any
Okay.
information, but I would say I'm in agreement with like the specific process, and maybe it's not even a conversation, but a more detailed letter that says this is how much money is left in the fund. We'd like to request it to stay, and to pay for these explicit costs, like, so not submit a whole new proposal, but just like details of what it's actually going towards.
Yeah.
But expected maintenance costs, great idea.
Well, and so I think what I'm hearing here is that, okay, you want to hold on to these funds. First of all, this comes out of us saying, hey, we want to pull these back. And sometimes they say, great, take them back, which is great. Other times, no, we'd like to hold on to them. Fine. Now come to us and tell, I think that should be the process. Fine. Now we need an update. We need to compare that to the original funding agreement, is what I'm hearing. So I think at the very least, that sounds like something that should happen with this. The other question I have is about maintenance being allowed under CPA, because I think there's actually fairly strict language about maintenance, and maintenance actually, like, the CPA funds are not really.
Well, right.
And I don't have to understand kind of what that connects.
Well, and I think that is something that the committee should consider here, that I don't think sort of the maintenance project of this trailhead would be fundable through a new project, right? So if the committee took the approach of closing these funds out and asking John to come back with like a maintenance request,
Yeah.
I'm pretty clear that that's exactly. But I do wonder I do think that CPA funds, have some flexibility in terms of, can they finish? Like, I think you could argue that the maintenance of a trail like this is finishing out the project, right? Like, it's allowing it to continue for, repairs that happen, within the designated amount of time. I don't know.
And
Yeah.
we're talking repairs.
So a section of the trail was damaged, right, in a rainstorm, and he used CPA funds to repair the section that was damaged when it was washed out. So that when he was describing to me verbally why he wanted these funds to stay, he cited that as an example of like, this is a use that he needs some flexible funding to be able to address.
Switching to keep it there in case.
Yeah.
And because you mentioned maintenance, it's just clicks in my head. We've had arguments about
So my thought, Tiffany, and tell me what you think here, is that that we ask John to come back in the next meeting to explain these funds, also to dig up the original funding agreement and understand what we approved, right? Like, let's see actually what we approved and how that aligns with what he's saying these are now being used for. And lastly, to get clarity on just legally CPA funds for maintenance and how that aligns with what we,
I think
what
you
is
should find
situation.
that in the law itself. I don't think
Does that-
it's in the law.
Yeah, no, it's not it's not an Easthampton thing. That's a state.
Correct.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense, committee? Does it, right? Because I think you're talking about this further, like we just need more details on this to really understand what to do next, because I think everybody's making good points.
Yeah.
All right. Sound good?
Agreed.
Cool.
Great.
All right. So let's do that.
Okay.
But I love that we're having this discussion, because it wouldn't have happened if Ava hadn't been reaching out. You know what I mean? Like, if we weren't trying to get to recover these funds, this wouldn't be an issue. And I think being more diligent with this is a good thing for our committee to be doing. So awesome. Thank you.
Great. Okay. The other update I have for the committee, or just sort of procedural administrative note, I did update this flow chart that was initially created by Jamie to describe the budget process the appropriation process of how money moves from the committee to the applicant if the committee decides to vote for a project. So just given that today is a voting day, I thought it could be a good time just to briefly revisit this so the committee has an idea. I'm sure much of this is review for many of you, but knowing that we have new members of the committee, and also just thinking that you'd like to look along. Thank you. Paper copy. So this is all that happens after you folks vote on it. I'll just run through it really fast. But if the CPA committee votes to appropriate funds to a specific project, next I basically draft it up. I write up a project funding agreement. I'd like to move that we actually look at those as a committee rather than historically, it seems as though it's been the coordinator and the chair and the applicant going back and forth around conditions, but having an opportunity to look at possible conditions that the committee would like to put on. Then it goes to the mayor, who sends it to city council. City council doesn't review it the first time around, but immediately sends it to finance. Finance committee holds a hearing. Typically myself and the applicant are present at that hearing. And then if finance committee sends it to city council with or without a recommendation.
Yeah, it's non-binding. So we schedule the public hearing usually at the point that we do a first reading and send it to committee. I'll send it to committee and schedule a public hearing in the same thing. So it's going to get a public hearing, even if we decide, no, we don't like this. It'll still get a public hearing.
Right. And that happened recently. An application was passed along, but without a recommendation.
It can also go without a recommendation. If we feel enough information, then we can say, well, we're going to keep the public hearing, but we're going to need to hear this, this, and this before we vote on it. So it can go with a recommendation for or against, or no recommendation can come out of that committee.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. So then it goes to city council, and city council holds a full hearing in which, again, myself and the applicant are typically present. Then it goes to the mayor, and then it comes back to myself to write a grant contract if the applicant is not a city if it's not a city project, if it's not a city agency. Otherwise, that process is waived, the grant contract is signed, and then the finance department transfers the funds from whatever overall account to that specific project account. So I just wanted to review that. And I also think it gives applicants a sense of why this process, even after the CPA committee votes, takes 1 to 2 months, is the smoothest way that we can make that happen. So,
Yeah, because everything we do is just in that first blue box,
first blue box.
and then the journey continues.
Right. And on the back, and we don't need to really run through this, but this is how the payment process works. Once a project is funded and they're requesting payment.
I think it's really helpful for potential applicants who have no idea about how this works. So I think this is a great service you do. Thank you.
Great. That is all I have under city officials.
Great. Account balances
Yes.
and open project updates. We already have some of the open project updates.
Ew, yep.
Can you make that larger?
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll sort of talk through this as we go down. The red box at the top was our beginning balances, the funding carried over from last year, and the budgeted amount set out in the February 2024 budget for fiscal 25. And then right here, lines 9 through 14 are the current fiscal year appropriations. So that's what the committee has already funded in quarters 1 and 2. That leaves us with this orange box is our available balances before our pending projects. And then in lines 26 and 27, we have our third quarter applications. This is up for discussion. This is how I from a spreadsheet perspective, if the committee votes for Valley CDC, this is something that they can talk about. So there's 200,000, 914,000 in the account. They're requesting 201,875. So we're going to have to split that into coming from 2 different accounts.
Yep. Got it.
These are the project closeout funds that will be returning to us to be used in fiscal 26.
And with that, wouldn't there be an addition of the pending, my understanding of Valley CDC
Yes.
is that would be voting on that, but part of that is the project closeout of their last agreement and there'd be funds returning, correct?
Correct. Yep. And those aren't reflected on the spreadsheet, but that's roughly $41,000.
Okay.
And then if the committee, yes.
Refresh my memory. 40,000 comes back. It's separate from 200,000.
Yeah, in the last meeting, they communicated that they wouldn't be using that, and they amended their request to be less, to be like 160, whatever the exact number was. But we said that the cleaner way to do that would be that we'd be voting on funding their full request, but also accepting the return of the money from understanding that they were with the understanding that we're returning the money from the previous project, because that needs to, because of the accounting,
Has to be closed out.
that has to go into the next. We don't get that money until the next fiscal year, and so to make it cleaner, that was the way that was talked about doing.
No, this is perhaps a little bit. Would it make sense to just take all 2,914 out of affordable housing to just draw that down to 0, since there's no way that any project is going to come up from $900, and then to just take the 900 and what would that be, 961 from?
That, I mean,
Yeah, I think that's something, I think we should probably save that conversation for when the committee actually votes on it.
Right.
but yeah, I could see reason. I mean, it is true that it's $914 we wouldn't be able to, well, unless there was another affordable housing thing and then we started with that 914, but why not just draw it down to zero? Because it's not like we're drawing down, no, $914 is what it is.
Right
So-
now, we have $200,914, and just on the sheet, it has it going from just
Because the
200,000,
110 is still there.
holding the
'Cause the-
914.
Because the request is for 201, so it
We didn't
moved it over.
spend that
down.
110.
Okay,
I wonder, just
Yeah.
out of procedure, like the Tasty Top affordable housing, why didn't we take that affordable?
Because we thought that we were funding Ferry Street out of the affordable housing set aside.
And we did.
We funded it out of its own budget item.
but that's fixed for the next budget.
That's fixed for the next budget.
Okay,
But that's-
just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no, makes sense. So
Okay, so
very,
$914 there.
Well, you're right. We could do that after we're putting the cart before the horse. We haven't even decided to vote on it.
but
Right.
right.
The last set of lines that the committee can take a look at, these are the preliminary possible fourth quarter FY25 requests. This is what has been told to myself and to the committee that may come in front of the committee. We have received applications for both the park's historic designation and the spray park, but we have not yet received applications for the other two.
What park's historic?
We reviewed a letter from John Mason at the last meeting talking about putting historic designations on the Stonehouse bathroom and the Brookside Cemetery.
Got it. So with all the projects that we know about, if nobody else, if we fully funded everything and nobody new came to us in the fourth quarter, we would actually have the funds to be able to fund those projects. Is that correct?
That is correct. If that's that green line down there,
And is the 150
this is the total.
the 150 that's left,
Yes.
isn't that matching the savings we have? What do we call that? To pay the one.
The reserve is that's already taken care of.
So the
Oh.
150 is spendable.
Yes.
Kira,
I have a clarifying question about the spray park. So the grant is for, it's like a 50%. So that's what was asked for. But in order to get the money, the city has to put all of the money up front and then they get reimbursed 50%.
Right.
So does the CPA have to commit to the full amount or just that 50% amount?
I don't believe historically that has been how the CPA has functioned.
I think I could be, Dan,
Yes, it has.
It has?
We've written a letter for Parks grants saying that we commit to this.
But we don't commit. We don't commit the full. In this case, would we commit the full 520,000 or 530,000 in terms of a project funding agreement, or are we willing
No,
to?
I don't believe
No,
so.
I think there have
we
been-
just did it.
Oh, right.
there's been times I think that we've done from city council, we've sent the things out saying we're committing to spending this money.
with the understanding
with
that
the
half of it's coming
understanding that
back.
half of it's coming back.
And so the
So-
CPA money is actually
So the
spent,
CPA
the
money is
city
actually
just fronts
spent.
money that gets back.
Yeah, I think that usually just gets handled out of like, or, out of wherever, but it doesn't matter because we don't actually spend it.
Yeah, right.
I
Okay.
think we appropriate the 264.
Right. So the CPA committee, I mean, does not have a cash flow problem from a broader perspective either.
I just know like the balance, we had to have that much money in the account to promise that we would pay
Yeah.
for that. And then it not actually be there.
I think
And if that
the
That's a
mayor did
legitimate
that-
question, but I don't
mayor did that for
think,
the pool.
Mhm. And for the bike path, we did that.
As a positive note about the spray park, we did receive word that the grant has moved on to the next stage
Right.
in approvals.
all right.
All right.
And
Okay.
anything else on that?
Nothing else on available balances. Open project balances. Our list is getting shorter. Very exciting.
Love it.
There's very little new information here.
But yeah, I mean, look at that, right? There's nothing before, we needed it. 117, which I know is you, but like, then we're getting into 22, 22, 23, 24. Like that's what it should look like. So great. Did you have an update on the one? I saw you had a document in there.
I did. I put it under new business.
Great. So I think we're done with account balances and open project updates.
Excellent.
Correct?
We are.
Great. New business.
New business.
Open Space Conservation Commission project updates. Look at that. Look at that transition.
Open space project updates.
I didn't want you to get skipped. I didn't see
from
it.
the
Sorry.
Conservation Commission per Chair Scott's request.
Thank you.
So
this is awesome. This is more than I needed.
Here we are. Our background here is Borkowski parcel. This is from the top looking down. Okay, but we're not going to start there. The first one we're going to start is with that FY17. So this is the Echodale Orchard Restoration Project. This project is, we see Oliver Street over here just to locate us in Easthampton geography. We have Oliver Street coming in over here. That's the like Oliver Street brush dump back up here with the solar. Park Hill, we've got Park Hill Orchard right here. We've got our little community garden right here. That's actually part of this overall parcel. But the main project here is focused on the orchard, which is north of the community garden. And that is an old apple orchard that, I don't know, Jay might know more details about. Do you know the last time it was used as an orchard?
It's been abandoned for years and years, so it's a threat to the orchard next door. So the Park Hill people don't like this orchard because of diseased trees and things could affect their orchard. So
right,
it's been abandoned for years.
Right. So with this CPA project, since funding it back in 2017, the diseased apple trees were removed. There was this Conway School Trails project exploration, which we have in front of us right there. And then currently what's going on with that project is the invasive species management. So this was a project fall of 2022. My predecessor spearheaded this, and it was sort of an imaginings project about what could we do with this orchard. A vision was to have some kind of trail between the community garden and Park Hill. I think that's still a possibility, but a down the line project for the city. Some kind of edible trail with utilizing some of the old apple trees, the ones that were not diseased that remain in the orchard. Moving forward, what's currently happening on the site is invasive species management. The Conservation Commission is currently under contract with Land Stewardship, Inc. This is from October 7th of last fall, and this is the plan for the next 2 years, really just until the beginning of 2026, for how the invasive species are going to be managed in this little meadow old orchard parcel. And we're very lucky that Jay himself is doing the brush hogging work, which really limits our cost.
Thanks, Jay.
This was a photo after Jay mowed this November. And I've been down in this parcel myself. It's a really beautiful parcel. It's not overtaken with invasives. It seems like a real location. We can actually get a real handle on invasives in there. It belongs to the city. This is a Conservation Commission. Both of these projects are Conservation Commission owned parcels. And once we have the invasive species under control, I think, next stages of visionings for this project, perhaps pulling something from this Conway School plan can happen. But moving forward, but any next steps would be, if the CPA funded it, it would be a new project. The plan for the remaining $8,000 in that account is to continue, it's to fund it out through the end of this contract.
Which is in line with the original funding agreement. Like this is what we approved essentially.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on this one?
This is what it looks like at a couple different seasons. It's really lovely, particularly since Jay brush hogged it. you can get down in there. So I recommend it. It's your public lands. It's right adjacent, right next to. It's like sandwiched between the community garden and Park Hill. There's no signs or anything, but you can find it.
That might not be a bad idea. Just sign up. I never had any idea this was ours.
Totally.
It's there.
Yeah, I think the Conservation Commission will be having a conversation shortly about some of our parcels and possible signage.
Great.
Great. That's one of the old apple trees.
CPA funds at work.
That's right.
Your CPA funds,
Always
that's
wanted
Well, they didn't, yeah, it's in all the funding agreements. There might have been,
How
it
many
might even
times
be in
have
this
we
one.
had Get signs up. I gotta go down to the park, see if they've got any signs up.
And there's that banner by Mount Tom. There's one at Mount Tom North too, at the one
Yeah.
project we were just
There's
talking
something
about. There's that
in
big
pickleball.
banner.
Good. We gotta keep letting people know, yeah, we're spending your money wisely.
Yeah. There
Look
you
at
go.
these beautiful projects. Okay, the other project that we're currently working on is Borkowski parcel. So Borkowski parcel is a complicated project, or it's a complicated nomenclature, because it both refers to just this parcel right here. You can sort of roughly see the property lines. They follow like this. This is the access to it. But then it also, in the sort of popular parlance, refers to this entire area outlined in blue. So this is a trail system on the side of Mount Tom. Again, just to locate us, this is Hendrick Street. All along here, we've got the Southampton border. We've got 141. This is like Hendrick and 141 meet right here. Great. And typically people access this parcel by parking on Burney Ave and crossing the street and entering through here, or they enter off of a pull-off on 141. And this is a mountain bike trail system. It's also used by hikers. And there was a Mass Trails grant in 2021 that this CPA project accompanied. And that project was to do,
Replace it.
I think it was primarily for permitting the natural heritage and wetland delineation work that was planned at the time. There is a bridge over Broad Brook here. The bridge is actually in pretty solid condition. We recently had it evaluated, and it's looking like it doesn't need any replacements. It needs a hand railing replacement, but a mountain biker is planning on handling that himself. And so NEMBA, New England Mountain Bike Association, and the Conservation Commission are really excited to have, really envision what a new project would look like here. This is a 4-mile loop trail that runs through here. That's called the Broad Brook Loop by some. There's a bunch of different little cut throughs. Not all of them are shown on this map, but some of them are. The main initial challenge that we are encountering right now, or the first step, I guess I should say, rather than even a challenge, is that this is, as shown in the PH 1178, this is all priority habitat for endangered and threatened species. So the next steps are, I have begun the permitting conversation with Natural Heritage. We're in the pre-filing consultation stage where we're discussing what we can do in this parcel, how we can do some mountain bike trail improvements that will not impact the endangered species in
Is
this
that why it got
project.
stalled to begin with?
That is why it got
That's
stalled.
why we approved this years ago, and then it got stalled, was because of the endangered species.
Exactly. So Mass Trails, I think, Mass Trails had a lot of projects at that particular cycle, but they also didn't believe that the proper diligence had been done to figure out what could be done in relationship with the species. But the original project was a trail restoration project that the CPA committee approved.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
It was about, right. It was for permitting and for delineation work and for, in the first step of this trail restoration project. So that is very much still what the commission wants to do, what NEMBA wants to do. These are some examples of the trail that definitely need some improvements. We need some bog bridges to avoid folks rolling and walking through the resource areas here. We need to build some trails that are, less susceptible to erosion. I'd say there's a lot of energy behind this. NEMBA's really excited to get moving on it, and as are we.
Awesome. Questions?
We originally thought that this trailhead would come out near the waterworks building.
Correct.
And it's-
So there's not currently plans for additional parking or access over there. So that section of the trail, this is the water building right here.
Mhm.
This section of the trail was in existence from the city purchased these parcels like in 1999 2000 area, had some donations. These are all like different parcels that were stitched together. It was the existing trail was damaged in a microburst in 2015, if you folks remember the microburst on the side of Mount Tom. So this section of trail, which connected to the water building, was really damaged and has not yet seen recovery of usage. That was part of the original plan, was to do some restoration work in here. I think we're still scoping out where exactly within this broader network that we're going to focus our efforts on improving the trail conditions. But something I'm really excited about in terms of how this project is a little bit different than the one you improved before is that, given my expanded capacity as the open space side of conservation, I can really manage some of the permitting in-house. Plus NEMBA has some skills around, they have members with wetland delineation skills. So we don't plan to contract out to, GZA, which was who we were working with, who the city was working with before for some of those permitting procedures.
Great. Thank you.
Good.
Awesome.
In NEMBA
Yeah,
is,
New England Mountain Bike Trail Association.
oh, I would have never thought about
Wonderful.
that.
Soon.
I would have never figured that out. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, totally.
Like, okay. That makes sense.
Can I ask a question? And Jay, maybe you can answer it. Has the endangered species part of this been solved or looked at, and is that still ongoing?
It's still ongoing because they don't tell you what the endangered species are until you get into the process. There's no you can't look up and say, oh, that's what's there. They won't tell you. You have to kind of start the process with them to find out what they're really protecting.
Well, we have some information from 2022 when Jeff Bagg originally pursued this project. So we have the information. There's 5 threatened or endangered species located here. 3 of them are data sensitive species, so they won't tell us at all. And then 2 of them are the eastern box turtle, meaning that they are more susceptible to possible takes, meaning that it's just not public information what those.
Look for them to take them out.
Tomorrow.
To poach them to sell them or something like that because they're that.
But our next step, as I showed, is really we're in the pre-filing consultation stage with Natural Heritage, and we're expecting a response from them within the next week. So this is really actively moving.
And they'll work with us. I mean, they're fine. It's nothing. They're just trying to protect the resources, so that's why they're careful not to publicize too much.
Right.
And a lot of this has to do, Dan, with times of year that you can do trail work. So avoiding certain times of year when certain creatures are active.
That's interesting. I'm glad to see it pick back up. And I'm glad to see follow up on open projects. This is more thorough than even needed, but I think it is good, I think, for the city to see, when we approved money from 6 years ago, that we expect something to still be happening with it. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Does the committee want to pursue a formal extension process for those projects?
Based on what you just showed me, I don't personally know that. I mean, because it seems like the money is still being spent in the scope of what we initially, as long as that's the case.
And it's a city department.
It's a city project. And it's
I'm not worried about
it. I'm drawing. I'm new to all of this still, so I'm sort of drawing kind of ad hoc line in the sand here about if we set out this work to restore these trails, and that's what the money's being used to do, and it's just that because of some permitting and issues with the state that's taken longer than we expected, that's not a problem for me. If the work that we has either, it's not happening anymore or it's completed.
Scope has
Right.
And
changed.
so the scope has changed. That's what I'm worried about. So those projects feel like the scope. Would you agree with me, or would everyone else agree that like the scope is largely what it was
I
set
agree
out to
that
be,
is
and
still
it's
the
just
case, yeah.
for whatever reason the project got delayed.
Right.
That doesn't. If we say, hey, we're going to give you money to build a building, and it takes you 6 months or 6 years to build the building, as long as you're building the building we told you to build,
Right.
that's yeah. But if you decide to stop building the building, then we want the money
Sure,
back.
correct.
Is there an expiration in the funding agreement? Is that partly why you said it? What in the funding
Yeah.
agreement, what does it say?
Here, do you want to ask Carol?
I'm gonna say for like documentation purposes, I think it would be helpful just to like, anytime we're asking for like an update on where things are at, where there's been an expiration of date and we're like, we're getting it back, where are you, what's your status? I think having just a letter submitted to say, you know, we are still currently doing the process, but it was delayed due to XYZ, just to document, like, we asked, they have a reasonable explanation for why there was a delay and why it should be extended.
So we can just vote on it. Get a letter figuring out how many years you need, given
Right.
the kind of things that have to go through.
I mean,
How much money's left in this again?
Borkowski has 23,000.
when did it expire?
Borkowski expired in 2022.
And Echodale expired probably in like 2020 then,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I mean, so maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing to officially say like right, because
Yeah, if they expire, then yeah.
we should say, so, I mean, I think we could,
Just
I mean, I think, but I mean, from what you presented, I think we could vote to extend from what presented. It's probably a good idea to not just say, well, we're not going to take it back, but we should probably be
You're right.
proactive
You're
and say, right? Like, so how long you need?
How long do we need, Jay?
Why don't we
It's a
do-
couple of years anyways.
Okay, so why don't we vote to extend for 2 years and then come back to the committee if you need more time, right? Something like that. I mean,
Sure.
does anybody want to make?
I make a motion to extend the timeline on these projects for 2 years.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Awesome.
I think it's good practice to officially say, you know,
Excellent.
because now they're not in violation, right? Now it's like the project funding agreement is extended and they're still spending the money that's in line with what, we don't have to go through the whole process. It's still in line with what we approved. Like,
Yeah, scope hasn't changed.
scope hasn't changed.
Right. And I'll draft up a memo that states that, just to have that in the file for the record.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
All right. All set with that?
All set.
Great. Continued business, years 2 and 3 of Lathrop invasive removal. Barbara, it's your time. It's for,
What do you need from me?
if you want to just give us the 1 minute of for anybody who's listening, just what you're asking for. You don't have to redo everything at all, but just the highest level.
You put the project up, the project funding agreement.
For the previous one, or which one are you looking for?
For Lathrop.
Voting.
Okay. But, okay.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Project has 3 parts. The biggest part by far is to remove invasives from 103 acres of Northampton and Easthampton, because this is a collaborative project. Remove invasives from 103 acres of conservation restricted land on both campuses total. The second part is which is Lathrop's contribution, is to remove invasives on some non-CR land, both landscaped and unlandscaped. And the third part is 1 program a year, open to the general public. You funded us for year 1 with the understanding that we would come back and report. But the funding was badly delayed in the city of Easthampton, and so we couldn't get the work done this past fall. So what we came to you and said was, we did everything but the work with that was dependent on your funding. And now we're asking you for the whole amount, to complete the whole amount. You gave us 33, now we want 69 and change. And we argued that if we have the whole 3-year part in our hands now, we can apportion our funds more wisely. Because typically removing invasives is more labor and cost intensive in the first year. And so by giving us only 1/3 of the total in year 1, you've clipped our wings a bit. Now we want to unclip them, and we want to be able to apportion these funds across what will now be the first year of work, the second year, and the third year. And this money will go towards, a little bit of it goes towards signs and things, but the great part of it goes to pay contractors to remove invasives on 78 acres of Easthampton CR land on the East Campus.
Thank you. Appreciate you summarizing that, not only for the record, but also because we do have new committee members that haven't been here for the whole process. Barbara's appeared before this committee half a dozen times probably by now. Are there questions from the committee? Yeah, Mary.
I have a question. Do you have any plans for maintenance in the future?
That's a really good question. Yes, and the answer is yes. We have a committee of more than 30 resident members. We have full support from the management and from the residents' council. And we have full support from the board of trustees. We are in we just finished a strategic planning process at Lathrop with 3 stools. 1 stool is environmental stewardship, and it includes this process. So we have a regular process in place to raise money to continue to take out invasives as they recur.
So does that mean you're putting it as part of your operating budget as well?
No.
I mean, as well as
Right, yeah.
accepting donations, of course.
What will be part of the operating budget, and this is a guess, but what's happening now is that part of Lathrop's operating budget is to remove invasives from the fields part of the CR land by brush hogging, and for them to offer us certain kinds of in-kind support for example, when contractors come in or volunteers come in and remove a pile of invasive shrubs, we get some help from Lathrop to take those off to where they need to be. So there is some in-kind support, but what we have in place, in this grant proposal, Lathrop residents have contributed $27,000 raised from our own residents. And the structure for raising that money is very firmly in place. And we get $9,000 to $11,000 a year from residents in a regularly scheduled fundraising campaign. So there's no reason why we can't continue to raise that money. And once you really get a hold of these invasives, which is the main project here, is to get the invasives in the whole tract of land up to a certain level of high control. And then, yes, they recur to some extent, but the cost load and the person power load goes way down at that point.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we have every intention and every possibility of being able to follow up here. And at the highest level, our board of trustees is very committed to this.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the committee? Is there anybody online that wants to speak about this project? I do see several members that I think are from Lathrop, and my guess is that if they're here, they're here to support this project. So I think maybe we should just note that this project has support from
Yes.
many members of the Lathrop community.
These are all residents and members of our committee. And Jennifer Kinsman is the development director.
And is that who spoke with us
Yes.
last time?
Mhm.
Yes. All right. Any other questions? I would recommend that we move to vote on this. I think Barbara has been very patient with this committee, and very thorough in answering questions all through this process, about the project and about the public benefit. The fact that it wasn't funded in a timely way over last year, and it affected the project was disappointing. And that really is, it's on the city. I mean, it was nobody's, ill will or nobody dropped the ball. It's just vacancies. And that, caused a delay. So I think it's really reasonable to look for, this to be funded for years 2 and 3. And I would recommend we approve this.
I'm a little confused.
Great.
Why do you have 69 total CPA funds and then the undesignated fund? You're saying it's coming from the undesignated fund?
Which the committee can certainly discuss. We can take a look at the
No,
other
I'm
accounts.
confused about how you present that because it looks like
It's twice the number.
twice the number. So maybe somehow redesign how you're presenting
I
it.
think that when it gets indented in one, that's suggesting, like that.
Yeah, that might be better.
Well, it was already indented. I already read it to be that way, but
I'm just saying, when I saw that, I said, because it says projects 2 and 3, is it 69,000 for year 2 and 69,000 for year 3? I'm just making sure we're funding 69,362.
382. That's for years 2 and 3. That's the entire project cost.
Okay, that's all I need.
Is the, from the open projects, not the open project, the account balances, is there any money left in open space?
There is $1,949 left in open space.
Well, Tom, this is the same point, right? Should we drain
Right.
that first?
it almost feels like, because no one's going to come forward for a $1,000, $2,000 appropriation, but they might come to us for something undesignated. So
Yeah, I think it makes
feels like-
sense.
I mean, this is really pedantic because of just the scale of the projects that come before us. But, when we're talking about the idea of us being a committee that isn't necessarily going to be as rich as it always was, especially with some of the demands, it does seem like the best practice would be to drain the designated accounts down to literally 0 and then move on to the undesignated.
I agree with that.
Or the
Yeah.
accounts could just turn over.
There.
Well, they do turn
They
over.
do turn over, but it's more, but it's for the current fiscal year.
Yeah, it's about if we get something in the last quarter. Sorry, I didn't mean.
No, I mean,
If we
go
get
ahead.
something in the last quarter, like, wouldn't it be a shame if we had something we were a little bit short on it, but we still had funds but not enough to actually fund any project in the designated.
It likely wouldn't matter, and yet it seems like best practice. So
Well, then-
why not do it?
Can we just change it?
Yeah, exactly.
We're approving 69,000.
Yeah. It's just where it would,
Undesignated and open.
exactly.
Is that motion?
I would like to make a motion that we fund the LASA project years 2 and 3, $69,382.
82.
To be funded out of the undesignated fund and remaining funds in open space.
Second.
Excellent. Did you have anything else you wanted to show with that before you were talking about additional?
I guess the only note I just wanted to make for the committee.
Before we vote on it, I just want to make sure because
Sure, yeah, just in terms of what accounts it's coming from, the other account that the committee can fund out of for open space projects, either undesignated or the reserve.
the open space and then undesignated. We'll wait for the reserve last.
Keep it the way you have.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good.
Great.
All right. Motion is on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. There you go. Barbara, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you, everybody in Lathrop.
Thanks.
Stewards of this money.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Barbara, will you stick around for a few minutes?
Yes.
I just thought, okay, so while we have it, oh, I need to project it back again. Now that the committee has funded it, I thought we could just take a quick look. So these total project costs for years 2 and 3, I'll have to get those numbers from you because it's just a little hard to sort out
Yeah.
on the budget.
Yeah.
Given that we were given the full 3-year cost, there's
Yeah.
the Northampton portion, there's a lot of different numbers floating around here. So we're looking for the total project cost for years 2 and 3 of Easthampton. And then we'll subtract to get the matching funds.
Yep.
Great.
We added, because our contractor was all ready to go this past summer to do the work, and then the funding didn't come through as we had expected. So since we asked him to postpone the work by 1 year, we added a 3% increase for inflation so that he can have a reasonable, fair deal. So that'll be in there. That's why the original request for 3 years and what we're asking for now will bring that total up just a little bit.
Okay.
Great. January 31st, 2028. That's the same date that we have on their previous project funding agreement
Great.
for year 1, knowing that they're going to combine these funds.
Yep.
Okay. I wanted to ask the committee about project updates. How often the committee is looking for project updates?
I think July 1st is a little too soon. They may not even have the money.
Maybe like end of the year, because once the first year's work is done, sometime in the maybe November.
You
or
expect to get
December.
something done this summer.
Oh, yeah, as soon as we get the money, and the best time to remove many of these invasives is after the middle of July. And it can go on into November, so
Why don't
we'll,
we do December?
yeah, that's
At
good.
December's meeting.
That's very easy for us. Yep.
Great. I had a thought that perhaps the committee would want to move to 3-month updates, 6-month updates.
Yes.
Given that we don't often get them, and maybe if we required them biannually, we could be a little bit more rigorous about that.
Great.
Okay.
And a project update could be a written report to you. You
Yes.
don't need to see them here.
So we don't need an
Do we
in-person
start-
report.
Do we?
I think unless requested. Right?
If they,
No.
if they give us a project update and then we have questions, they come to the next meeting.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I can put a note about that too. So
You're always welcome.
Thank you.
You're just like, I miss going to the CPA meeting. I've been there a while.
That's how they're all doing.
I think you need a license, that's the thing.
great. So I did that. We'll require a final project report.
Yeah.
Great. And you can, I imagine that the committee's comfortable saying that we'll have one final project report, even though we have 2 project funding agreements, because we have the 20.
Correct.
Great.
Yeah.
So just one project final report. And then on the topic of signage, just because we were just talking about it, I did take a site visit here. So fun for me. This is my first CPA site visit.
Nice.
And they have this beautiful sign up at the Northampton conservation restriction line. And I'm wondering if the committee wants to ask for something like this for the Easthampton conservation restriction.
Yeah, especially
Where
since
does
it
say
says
funded by
right in the
CPA?
corner, project funded by Northampton Community Preservation Committee and Lathrop.
Do you guys want bigger font?
Yeah.
What are you-
Turn around. See the corner? The CPA committee, this is Northampton.
So I just asked them if they wanted bigger font.
Oh,
We would like something like that for Easthampton.
okay. Okay.
So a sign,
Sign and-
so a sign that says entering Easthampton's conservation restriction. I think you can
We
use
did
your,
fund more as of now, right?
That's true, so you should have a bigger sign.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, you know.
Or it could be the same size sign, but the part about Easthampton.
Yeah,
Huge.
That's what I thought we were talking about, just the East Hampton part.
All right, great.
So,
we only
so we'll
So we'll
request,
request that in the funding agreement.
I'll
Yes.
request that in the funding agreement. Great. The site is really beautiful if anyone wants to go. I mean, Barbara, there's some really lovely trails back there. I recommend them.
Great.
Great.
And they are public. They're public, accessible to the public.
They are.
There's a sign at the trailhead says, whatever.
Public as well.
Public as well.
It's part of why CPA can fund it.
Right.
All right.
Okay. And then this is our typical clause. No significant changes may be made to the scope of the project. That kind of gets at what we were talking about earlier. And then, as Barbara knows already, but just that no payments can be made in advance. Either we can pay your contractor directly or you can submit for reimbursement through the city.
So you can pay the contractor.
We can pay, I can pay the contractor directly from the CPA account. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Are there any other conditions that the committee would like to add to this project funding agreement?
Great. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yes,
We used to have to
Appreciate
have, I, like the appropriation request.
By Hadel and by
It used to be.
my director, by the planning
And me,
director.
yeah.
Scott, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it goes Scott
I
Hadel.
remember. When we get the appropriation in front of the council.
Totally. Well,
And
hopefully,
I have to say, I'm glad you're on the ball because that was always an issue. Timing.
timing, yes. Well, we will try to be expedient as
Good night.
possible. Thank you so much, Barbara.
Go on.
Thank you, Barbara.
Hi, Sarah. I apologize that you can't see us.
Hi, that's okay.
We're all the same.
All right. Next order of business, Valley CDC Mortgage Aid Program.
Sarah, do you want to?
Yes. And Sarah, that you're back with us.
I'm back with you. So if you've got
Excellent.
questions or want me to give a recap, I can do that.
Yeah, if you could give, because we actually have some new members of the committee. I forget, Mary, if you were actually here for you were here. But if you could give a quick recap, that would be terrific. And then be available for any questions.
Okay, great. So previously we have done the mortgage loan subsidy program through Easthampton CPA funds. We had asked for three $25,000 mortgage subsidies. We have been working on this project for a few years now, and we have found that it was challenging to get rid of all three due to the housing market right now, and then what a low to moderate income individual can actually afford to stay in the communities that they currently live or work. So that is why this year we've asked to increase it to 50,000. So we're doing three 50,000 mortgage loan subsidies in addition to providing financial literacy education, first-time homebuyer education, and post-purchase education. So that's why it gets us up to around the 200,000 mark for including all of the education that we'll be able to provide as well as the subsidies. And we're looking to do this over an 18-month period of time.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
And Sarah, from the last meeting, we saw that you had modified the request because of the money from the previous funding agreement that was unused, and that would be returned. Is that's
Yes,
still the
that's
case?
correct. Yeah,
Great.
from our
And-
previous meeting, we had asked for that information and we were fine with either giving it back or having it roll into the next one, whichever worked for the committee.
Yeah, if this is approved, the way it would work, we would approve the full amount. But do that contingent on the money, the remaining money returning, but we wouldn't reduce the amount of the request just because that needs to go into the next fiscal year just for accounting.
Good.
All the documents for this project are in the shared drive. I'm not sure if you had a chance.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, perfect. Does anybody have any additional questions from Sarah? From the information in the last meeting or the meeting before? Some of my questions were answered in what they provided the last meetings.
So we're gonna do the same thing.
I think that would be the recommendation, yeah, to drain that to zero and then to go to the
So the amount is still $200,000.
201,875 is the request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion?
I mean, were there any other questions?
No other questions.
All right. Well,
Make a
this is,
motion that we approve PDC mortgage subsidy 201,000
875.
875
875.
201,875
Correct.
to be taken from the undesignated fund and the affordable housing account. Is that correct?
Sounds correct.
and,
Second.
and could we, just so it's clear that we're under, sort of add on to the motion with the understanding that the money from the previous, the remaining money from the previous agreement, has been agreed to be returned.
Yeah.
Is that
Right, Sarah?
Yes.
Second amendment to that.
I just think, I think it would probably,
Rolled
right?
into the current.
Well, it has to, it's easier for us to send the money out and then
To return it. I think because that's our understanding, I'd like to have that be part of the vote, so that it all feel, you know what I mean? Like do you still have the meeting?
Yeah. Hi, Sarah. I apologize for that.
That's okay.
We are not in our normal conference room and we were not fully prepared. I was not fully prepared with the technology in this new room.
Are we
That's
still-
okay.
We are still recording.
okay, so I think we're fine.
I think
Right.
I think we're fine.
Yeah. Great.
Contingent on the remaining funds being returned.
Will you just state the motion in full, given that we just had this?
201,875.
Correct.
That we approve the Valley CDC Mortgage Aid Program in the amount of $201,875 to be taken from the designated fund and remaining funds in the affordable housing account, contingent on the remaining funds from this fiscal year being returned to the city. That's
Which was, should we say the amount? We have that amount. It's like 50 net.
I can pull it up.
I think it's important to state the
Then
amount.
add the amount. So contingent on the
Yep.
dollar.
Well said. Thank you.
Mhm. I think it's okay. It's more than that. Contingent on Sarah, the remaining funds for possible rollover as of 2/21/25 is the most current update, correct?
Yeah, that's the final update. The final invoice was sent.
Yes. Excellent.
So you're okay with the remaining $59,601.58 returning?
Yes.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Put that
Okay,
into the motion.
so we'll put that into the motion.
That's into the motion.
So it's
Yep.
200.
Great. Thank you.
So you
Yeah.
can follow it through.
Great. So there's a motion on the floor.
Second.
You did say.
I think you already did.
I did.
You're second again.
We
Perfect.
changed the motion.
Yeah, we
so I
did
didn't-
change the motion. You're right. Sorry to make that
Right.
complicated. You good here? Or
We're good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? There you go, 6-0. She's still there?
Back.
She's still there.
Oh, you plugged, I see what you did. I see what you did.
I'm still here.
Excellent. I don't know if you heard that. We just approved it.
You did. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you for bearing with us in these
Yeah, of course.
technological times.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, I am going to project the draft project funding agreement so we can just do this one more time. So I will change, and we voted for this out of the undesignated account, correct? Not the reserve.
Yeah, I figure we shouldn't touch reserves unless everything
That's right,
else.
yeah,
Okay, so I'll do the math there.
Should be,
Less than 914. We trust you.
yeah, so then 961. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Okay. All right. So this is the total project cost that we have from their original budget and the matching funds from their original budget. I'll confirm those with Valley CDC before this is submitted, that those numbers haven't changed. The next is the expiration date, how long we want this project funding agreement to last for. The
What was
previous,
ask?
Sarah, what was the ask for the
It was
like?
18 months.
It was 18 months.
Great. You good if we keep it at that? This one?
Yes. And so it's 18 months from the date or like from when it's gone through all the phases and we signed the contract, correct?
Correct.
Should we say, just to give the, should we say January 1st, 2027?
Sure.
Sounds good.
Sounds really far off in the future. 2027.
Okay. The next condition just stipulates the grant contract process that we just talked about. Project updates. When would the committee like its first update? How often would the committee like updates?
6 months, then we get a final.
Yep. Great.
Okay.
That could be a template for all of it.
Yes. Okay. So the first one in following this logic, should we say January 2026 or December 2025?
Yeah. December 2025.
Great. Final written report, per usual, crediting CPA in written materials. The sign piece isn't applicable here unless Danris can come up with somewhere they should put a sign.
On the new homeowners lawns will be a little tacky.
On their website?
Materials like about financial literacy things like as funded by CPA.
Totally.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I think they've done that in the past.
Whatever would let people know where the money's coming.
Great.
It is stated that it comes from Easthampton CPA. It's on our website when the program is funded. And it's also in documentation.
Excellent. No significant changes to the scope, and once again, like either paying directly contractors isn't really that relevant here. So it's paying invoices for services done back to Valley CDC. Or paying the reimbursement of the mortgage subsidies. Is that typically? Yeah.
The city writes the mortgage subsidy directly to the closing attorney's office.
Great. So that's included in that in item 7 here.
Okay.
Great. Are there any other conditions the committee would like to have?
Anyone? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well then, Sarah, I'll get this cleaned up and sent to you next week. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.
Okay.
All right. I think that's it. Anybody want to make a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.